Good morning, everyone. I thought I'd come on live a little before 9 because the last time we had a huge problem with connecting together. So I'll be waiting for Aisha so I can invite her to the conversation as well. And I see Dana is looking. Hi, Dana. Good morning. And yeah, if you follow us, you probably know that we have complications with getting live. So that's why we tuned in a bit earlier. And I see Aisha is online. And I accept her. And let's see if she is connecting. Aisha, I accepted you. So I hope you get in. And if you're watching, you can maybe get something to drink because it might take a while. It did last time when I was trying to log in with Aisha on her. Yeah, there she is. Almost.
What?
There you are.
You saw my
Yes.
bags. You saw my bags. Hi.
Good morning.
Yeah, I made it. I made it to the cafe. Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly. And I was just telling everyone
Okay,
that
good.
if you are following us, we always have challenges with getting live. So maybe you
Yeah.
want to explain what happened?
Well, today was pretty smooth. Yeah. We had a power outage at home.
So where are you now?
We had a power outage at my home office. I'm just down the street at a cafe. Look, there's this pretty funny mural on the
Oh,
wall.
nice. Well, that's different than your home
Yeah,
office.
I'm at a cafe down the street. Yeah. Well, I'm happy I can hear you because there's music and there was some people speaking, but yeah, I can hear you now. Hey, nice to see you, Nikki. Thanks for hosting this week's live.
Good morning. So,
good morning.
People who are watching and do not know you, Aisha is a geomancer and an architect and an alchemical healer. And she works with the energy for designing properties and buildings. And she teaches people how to do that themselves as well. So for today, we had the idea to talk about the Genius Loci. And
yes,
do not know what it is, you can translate it with something like the spirit of place. But maybe you want to elaborate a bit on that, Aisha. What is a Genius Loci?
Yes. Just for one moment, let me take off my coat.
Of course. You must have been really in a hurry getting to the bar.
Yeah. Yeah, the Genius Loci. The Genius Loci is really it's the spirit of place, as you said, the soul of a place, the spirit of a place. And it is a living being. Back in university when I was studying architecture, we had a term in Rome, in Italy. We were lucky to go with the whole class to Rome, to Italy. And there I really connected through the amazing lectures that the professors gave there. We really connected with the Genius Loci, and it was mentioned in architecture school what this spirit of place was, but it was communicated more on the intellectual, conceptual level. You know, for example, you can get a sense of the spirit of place when you look at the emblems on a country's or a region's flag. You know, in Italy, there were all these townships and, flags that represented, the emblems, like let's say, one township has the spirit animal of the eagle, and another one has, the lion, and another has some snakes and something, right? So we see these images and symbols on flags of certain regions, and some regions are holding cups of water with, feminine figures that are, let's say, holding the city. I mean, I don't have any specific references. Maybe you do, Nikki, after I have my first round of speaking. So we had a sense that we had an idea that each town had this kind of, it's kind of like the soccer teams, right? Like this representor of place, right? And you could see it in the flags, engraved in the architecture of places, of buildings. And there was, back in the day, a kind of responsibility towards upholding the the will, the desires of the spirit of place. But we didn't go the professors didn't go so deep into it in architecture school. And it was really just more about like identifying, okay, well, what region is this building from? Or what time period is this region from? And then you could kind of, from the certain style of building, or from what the emblems were written on it, you could get a sense of where that building is from, right? But as I went deeper into my studies in anthroposophy, in geomancy, and geomancy is a big part of geomancy is really is about tuning into the spirit of place, and yeah, so when I went more deep into that exploration, I realized that it's actually, and as my spiritual gifts started to open up, and I started to tune into the subtle dimensions of properties, I understood that the spirit of place is actually a living being. And you can at times communicate with it as an individual entity, and at times it's a conglomerate, a whole grouping of energies, maybe a grouping of the nature spirits, a grouping of certain thought forms and that have accumulated over time through the history that's been accumulated there, through events that have been accumulated there. And also what the land is, the energetics of the land. A good example of this is when you look at certain mountain ranges, for example, or topography, let's say, because some places don't have any mountains like where you are, Nikki. Right? So if we read the topography of some places, I find often that the spirit of the land, an aspect of the spirit of the land, really does express its unique flavor and essence through the topographic qualities. Now, that's one aspect. I feel humans bring a lot to the spirit of place, and in fact, Genius Loci cannot exist without presence of humans. That could be arguable, but that's what I'm finding, that that's kind of a yes and no. I'll get back to that. So going back to the topography, it's, when you bring up a certain place, and, I ask everyone right in this moment, bring up a place that really you feel connected to energetically. And it may not be a place that you have even been to, right? It may be a place that's calling you. And tap into the qualities of its topography, okay? And we can get we know, okay, you can observe it on a physical level, have a picture image of, let's say, a certain mountain range, like the Swiss Alps, versus the flat plains of Holland, versus, you know, being by the seaside somewhere and there's some islands, lots of islands, let's say in Finland, right? I'm thinking about the island topography of Finland. So there's a form world there, and the forms are expressing there the breath, the spirit of place. And it's really great to tune into its energetics and really sit with what the forms there are, how they're making you feel, okay? And so when you tap into that, you can explore, well, what if these forms were living beings? And what do they have to tell me? What kind of messages do they have for me in this moment? So the spirit of place communicates through these particular topographic forms. And so that is one aspect that I tune into when I'm working with clients and helping them to give birth to the property of their dreams, whether it's a garden or a building or a community of buildings. And sometimes you get a sense of it, when you look at what is called vernacular architecture. Vernacular is the traditional building style method of a given region. When the plans for certain cities were really connected with the energetics of the Genius Loci, really beautiful cities emerged out of that. I think of Siena. Siena in Italy is just, it's a magical place. So there's that aspect. You can tune into the Genius Loci by tuning into the traditional built forms as well of certain regions. Now, that said, there's a lot here. I have a lot to talk about with the spirit of place and the Genius Loci. As we are moving into the fifth dimension, as we are transforming and moving into a new paradigm, so is the Genius Loci. And I invite everyone to take that approach, that the Genius Loci, in fact, is changing within his or her own region, okay? And he wants new forms to be birthed in the region. Now, some Genius Loci may be more old and stuffy, and not want to change as much, and maybe want to keep their town as a museum of old artifacts, right? And some Genius Loci actually hold the seed of the new earth. Ukraine is about to be invaded. I don't know the recent advancements. I'm just following it through another Instagram profile that I follow. And this is Angelic Celestial Colors. I don't remember her name. Oh God, she's a huge channel. And she pulled some cards related to the region of Ukraine, and that there is a new earth energy in the Ukraine right now that the forces are trying to basically damp down. So, okay. There's so much streaming through right now.
Yeah.
So back to the Genius Loci. They are characters. They are living beings, protectors of place, holding the patterning of a given area. The patterns hold history. The patterns hold events. The patterns hold trauma. but the genius loci, I feel, ultimately is connected to the benevolent beings, the angelic beings, and is always working towards good, always working towards holding of space for that culture, for the folk souls of a region, and is also working in collaboration with the forms, the natural forms of the topography and with the nature spirits, and there's this collaboration going on there. So many layers, and why is this important to know if you are a property designer, an architect, an interior designer, a geomancer?
Well, I would
Well,
even
the
go.
spirit of the land.
I would
Yeah.
even go as far as, even if you are not aware of this being, you are influenced by it. Even going back to the topography and staying a bit on top level of all the genius loci, if you take the shape of mountains, there are mountain areas with steep angles, and you have mountains that are more like hills. And if you look at the personality of a community, you will find that when there is steep angles in the mountains, the people are
Yes.
much more passionate or getting angry fast, because if you know that sharp angles are a sign of fire, you will see that also in the personality of the people who live there. So even if you are not, being all spiritual and connecting with beings and personifications of energies, you will be influenced just by living in that area. You will change. And I know, because I moved from flatland to Switzerland, I had I needed to some time to get connected and get to know the new area in a whole different kind of way, because it's a new vibe, and it changes you, and not in very big ways, but in very small things, if you have attention for it. And maybe people, you lived in a different country as well, maybe you recognize that as well.
Yeah, Nikki, I love that. That is so important, that it's a chance that the topography, in fact, can mirror or um, aid the bringing about of certain aspects of our character, our being, or even new ones, bring about new ones. And I think about, there's so many people who have made big moves to live, let's say, permanently in Bali or permanently in Florida or something, right? And there's a reason for that their soul, their body, the makeup of their body is, feels perhaps more whole there. But I love that the mountains of Switzerland brought something up for you, and that your body needed to adjust um, to that new environment. I love that. That is so. It's form, right? It's architecture. It's architecture of nature
Yeah.
that is influencing us. That's making an impact on communities. And I love that. Yeah, like more sexual, like more fiery and more sexual being, communities or cultures versus others that are more flat, or others that are more straightforward, or people who are more blunt versus people who like to dance with their words a little bit more. And I don't know,
That's what they say about
yeah.
the Dutch, and I once wrote a huge post on that. Because we live in the flatland, we the stereotyping of a Dutch person is that they have no feeling for hierarchy. They're blunt. They go everywhere. And if you look at the country, we
Yeah,
have a
it's flat.
view on everything, and we speak directly. We use the English
Yeah.
language to speak even more direct than our Dutch language is, while the English language in itself is more a beating around the bush kind of system as they use the English. And you find Dutch people everywhere on the world. They travel everywhere. If a lot of Dutch expats I met, they are taken in by companies because of their no feeling of hierarchy. You just make it happen, and they put in positions where they do that. So somehow I cannot get over the analogies of the place here and how the stereotyping of the Dutch people is, and that goes for a lot of other folks, the Italian people,
Yeah.
for example, or South American people. They are very fiery and sensual, and if you look at where they live,
Yeah.
it makes sense. It makes total sense. Not everyone on a personal level, but generalized, I think you're pretty safe with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just thinking as you speak, in the regions in Turkey, there are people who are more lazy, like along the coastal regions, you know, and it's much more hot, and versus the Black Sea coast, where you've got really hard-working women, actually, really great timber architecture. I mean, it actually looks like Switzerland, many of the places along the Black Sea coast, very mountainous regions, lots of rain. And then there's the more desert regions closer to Syria. I mean, and then we all know, like, you know, in each region, you know, everybody makes jokes about each region's, you know, people and culture. And I'm curious, just, you know, there are a few people who have joined in our live. It would be great to hear some of your comments as well about how you have experienced different places and how they've affected you. And if you can also tune into the Genius Loci and what have those personal experiences been. Nicky and I would love to know. So add your comments in to this chat, and if you have any questions on how Nicky and I can guide you along that path and into connecting with the Genius Loci. Just to wrap up the architecture piece, and I'm curious, Nicky, I want to pass it on to you also, just in terms of house healing and creating your personal power place. I'm very curious about how you've connected with the Genius Loci. But before that, that one piece about the transformation. I'm here really as an architect for the new earth, and I am that I bring the nature spirits and the Genius Loci to the design table. I'm pioneering a new modality where we are literally, you know, the client is at the design table, the architect's at the design, the engineer's at the design table, but the Genius Loci and the nature spirits, the spirit of place, is also at the design table, and I take it very seriously. Um, and when they're held, when they are honored, when the Genius Loci is honored and acknowledged, then a lot of amazing collaboration can happen. And I'm interested in not rebirthing the old forms that we see in traditional vernacular architecture, which is a very good indicator, can give us clues into the Genius Loci and the history of place, and how people have beautifully or not beautifully merged with the existing topography and the energetics and the ley lines and the power spots and all this beautiful stuff. Beautiful, really great to study. But I'm here to ask a question like, hey, like, I'm bringing the Genius Loci to the table. Let's collaborate on building the future forms. And they get really excited. The energetics of place gets really excited when someone asks them to collaborate with them to birth the new forms, things that we have never seen before, forms that you can't pull out from a design magazine, forms that you can't pull out from Pinterest, you know, something so unique to the energetics of that particular property and for what it will bring for the future generations, and the soul of the client. There's a kind of sculpture that I see, a sculpture that gives birth, or that is existing around the soul of the client, and when that merges with the spirit of place and this new contemporary approach to co-creative property design, then really like very original and very exciting forms can happen, can be created. Yeah.
How do I connect to the spirit
Yeah.
of place?
Yeah, for house healing and
Well, I do not give birth to something new because I'm not a designer. You know, I get called in when people are not feeling at home in their house. So what
yeah.
happens often is when I drive there, and I drive through all the Netherlands and Belgium to people's places, there's always a certain, when I get closer to their homes, there is a certain click something makes, and then I know, oh, I'm in a new kind of area. And you really get, okay, this is the vibe of this place. And when you speak to the people, because they are always aligned with where they are living, but because you have a sense of the flavor of the area, you can easily in the house itself see where it is out of place, and then you dive in, whether it is what I call the earth organs, the whether it's the spirit of place, whether it's the history of the place, whether it is trauma in the people. So the spirit of place I usually see as something of a region. But that said, the spirit of place in Roman times, how you start your conversation, was also a house spirit. And it was personified as a snake. And people would have pets as a snake as a pet in the house and taking care of that. And I'm not sure if it's true because I haven't been able to research that. But somebody once told me that Karel the Grote, Karl the Great, um, banned all the snakes being pets, and that uh, caused a huge mice and rats overflow. Yeah,
infestation.
but
Yeah.
there are paintings in Roman age of snakes, and that is the spirit of place, and they would give it offers as well, like they would have a little altar in their houses. So spirit of place, Genius Loci, in Roman times, I think, was also really, really local. So I think it can be both. And it may be more about a
Yeah.
personification of an energy than that you can say it is really local, or it is of a region, or like you said, from a country or an area. And if you have a sense of the flavor, you would see on a local level whether it's out of place or not. And then you can connect to whatever being is out there, and all the beings, all the energies are happy to help when you give them attention, because 10 out of
Yeah.
10 times they've been ignored. There's just, put a building there and things are not happening right for the family. And it is basically energy um, demonstrating that I'm not happy. So please help. So if somebody comes along like you and like me, to help residents with that and make residents aware of those energies, and then you can work with the energies and start flow happening in the house. But usually I don't really work with the spirit of place, but because it consists out of so many elements, it's usually a couple of those elements that are out of place, so you can bring back harmony into that. So the spirit of place falls back into the flow of the whole bigger area.
I just got this beautiful image of your clients being put back into place, their inner place, their soul's place, their into alignment. Because ultimately, when you're healing your client's home, you're healing your clients, right? There's this strange feeling when we get, oh yeah, you know what just came up? The feeling of placelessness. And you know where I feel that a lot? In Canada. I'm born and raised in Canada. In places like shopping mall strips.
Yeah.
And I know they also, of course, have their own unique world, and I'm not saying like, oh, I'll never go there because they're placeless and whatever, but I've been in, I remember there was one strip where we would have to pass to get into the campus grounds of my university. And it was endless parking lots, strip malls. And now actually, as I use the word strip, it felt like those developments were stripping the land of its place, like stripping the land of its spirit. And I felt so ill driving through those strip malls. Strip malls for Europeans and others who are not familiar with North American developments and landscapes and whatever built form. They're these typical kind of one-story, really badly built, as cheap as you can build, what they're called strip malls. And some are larger, some are shorter. You get fast food and just these kind of franchises all lined up, and these vast parking lots with no trees. And really, yeah, I felt really ill. And for me, those felt placeless. It felt like it was like placelessness. And my soul was trying to anchor itself, and it couldn't. I felt so ill. And of course, at that time, I was more sensitive, and I wasn't as energetically equipped to deal with situations like that. Placelessness.
What I find in such places that there's probably been an architect without any attention for spirit of place, without any love of his work. There is no omphalos, there's no center, there's no grounding. So you feel placeless. There's no grounding. It's not connecting. It's really literally floating up in the air. So if you are there and you are not grounded yourself, you get connected. There's also often a lot of electrosmog, which makes you confusing, as well. We have a store that's called here Media Markt. I always have that feeling.
We have it too.
I always have
too in Turkey.
It's like a big box with a lot of TL, with a lot of transformers in there. And you get really busy after 5 minutes. At least I do. I don't like those places. But that's the kind of feeling. And yes, it can be transformed, but somebody needs to take the responsibility for that existing building. And then you can have a whole different dynamic in the people who visit your store as well. That's the house healing part of bad architecture.
Yeah.
So you don't
Yeah.
always have to.
There are.
What were you saying?
Yeah. I was just noticing some comments coming through, Nikki.
Ah, oh yeah. Let me see.
Oh, I think it's from Aisu. Oh no, there's quite a bit here. There's one about the Vatican City.
Yeah.
Since you're the host, I let you choose.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to read it all.
Does it show up small on
Yeah,
your?
really, really.
It's
I
like you
have
have to like.
to.
Yeah, it's really small. How do you like?
There's a Vatican City. I've been there many years ago, and I felt really heavy. I was so impressed with
Oh
all
yeah.
the.
Can I read the comment again? I'm just going to read the comment out
Yeah.
loud. I developed it. This is from Aisu. Hi, Aisu. I developed a depression related to children in the Vatican City when I lived there on at 5 minutes walking distance. I heard children screaming for help in Rome. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, that could have been anything from stuck spirits to something that has to do with things that happened there. It's really difficult to make a diagnosis on that by this comment. But that can happen if you're sensitive to that. And then you have a
Did you
choice.
say that you lived there, or
No, I was.
did you say you've been there, experienced it? Oh, okay.
I've been there, with a trip. I think I was even.
Yeah.
Uh, it was in my teenage years at school. I already sensed those things. I didn't have the vocabulary yet to express all that, but now, with insight, I can understand.
Yeah. Yeah. And Rome is so rich with so many layers. Oh my God. Yeah.
There's another one.
There's another one with
I
Switzerland.
feel placeless all the time.
Okay.
Rarely have I felt home. In the mountains of Switzerland, a beach on Koh Phangan, Thailand. Occasionally in the mountains of England. That's about it, I think. Well, if I can give you one tip, work on your grounding. Also been to malls like that in South Africa, so many of them. Just concrete blocks with bright lights. Yes, I understand that. Yeah. So work on your grounding. That will really help you. And Aisu said, the feeling Nikki describes, I felt heavily in New York City. I can imagine that. Yeah. There's a lot going on in New York as well. Yes, I'm in New York.
How would you, Nikki, you talked about working on your grounding. How could we go about doing that? And how are we for time, by the way? Oh, we're
We're
good.
good.
We're good. Yeah.
But the easiest is just sit down and use all your senses and start with one sense at a time. What do you smell? Focus on that. And what do you hear? Focus on that. What do you feel? Focus on that. What do you taste? Um, you could, of course, do a visualization with growing roots out of your feet. You could connect to something that is called the center of the earth and make a visualization of that. You could go dip into cold water like I do, which is basically sensing as well. It's really good for grounding. You could start doing sports if you don't do that. Get into your body. Focus on the breathing and just the breathing. It's all very good exercises to work on grounding and just be in your body, because people who are not grounded enough, and if you have a bit of sense or sixth sense sight, you see those people, they are living out of their bodies. and floating on top of their heads. So if you are focusing on all of your senses, it will mean that you are back into your body. Balance exercises are also very good for grounding. So what works for me is a visualization. And the first time I did a grounding exercise, and that was an exercise connecting, I think it was connecting to the center of the earth. It took me about half an hour to really feel connected. And now I just have to think grounding and it's done. So it's also practice, 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 practice. So don't be disappointed if it doesn't work in 5 minutes. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah. Nicky, when you mentioned the people with the sixth sense and that they're kind of floating, I don't know if you use exactly that word, but that's what came up for me. I used to be that way in many ways. When I got noticed that I was gaining spiritual gifts, there was a sense of being pulled more high up into the sky for a while. And in some ways, my shadow parts were also using that as a way to not be on earth, like using it almost like an excuse, like, well, I don't have to deal with earth. I don't have to deal with people.
Yeah.
I don't have to communicate properly. And I noticed that, and I actually, through a self-development course called On the Presence, led by Lawrence Follows in Canada, the group noticed that about me. And what I could sense is that my feet were being pulled off of the ground, and I wasn't communicating with really grounded language. It was just kind of like this, and of course not all the time, but there was that tendency. And yeah, I love your example. What I noticed was this: the more I grounded in my mission here on earth, it really helped me, like, to fully embody that and to bring it down to a level that is practical, down to a level that is really helping other people, down to a level that is like, just talk normally, right? With normal practical language. More and more, then my feet felt much more grounded on this earth. And now I think I've always felt at home in many, many different places. I'm very adaptable in that way. But there is an inner anchor now that I'm very grateful for, and it was, I achieved it through the help of others and awareness of myself. And I find also placing things like altars in the home, a very simple altar, and even even some rock energy for grounding, like earth energy. It may be clay. If you're not a traveler on the go, although you could design a traveling altar and always unpack that thing, right, like a box. And you could also work with the form of the cube. The cube for me really grounds, and the square and the cube was, does have the earth element in it. I know that, there are different ways you could look at that, but I find altars to ground, and they can be really simple, and it helps me to stay on track with, okay, what are my core values? What's my mission on earth? And even just the calming of the body, it really helps you to come back to your center, for sure.
Well, it's good that you express all that, because I also want to say, if you do not feel grounded, that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing if you're not grounded, but it helps, because we are here on earth, to be, living on this earth because you chose to be here. Whatever your beliefs are, you are here now, and it helps sometimes if you are really grounded and can get practical. But if you have a mission like yours, because I'm a more grounded person, um, it is necessary to, fly up there, get your information, especially as a designer, and then you have to put it
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
shape, which is really grounding exercise, you know?
I know. And very humbling.
Yeah. And for me, I
I'm
always
like
work the other
the
way around. I'm a really grounded person, and I had to, you know, be more airy-fairy sometimes to connect to the information. So it's
yeah.
just, it's not a bad thing if you're not,
Yeah.
but if you're not feeling well because you are not grounded, then it's a problem. If you do not feel connected because you're not grounded, then it's a problem because everybody wants is craving for connection with people, with your surroundings,
Yeah.
and then it is a good thing to ground. I'm not saying that all people should be grounded all the time, forever, always.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. It depends really on what is your mission, what is your talent, what are you doing here, what is your purpose. So if I make anyone feel that they should be grounded all the time forever, that's not the case. But it can
Yeah.
help
Yeah.
if you're not
I love
feeling
that,
well.
Nikki. Yeah. And as you speak, Nikki, I love that. It's so important. And there may be times in our lives, like I described, that where it's needed for you to fly up to the sky and be in the air realm with the cosmos. And there may be times in your life where you really need to be like, okay, every morning I'm going for the cold swim. I'm in my body. I feel my feet. I feel my hands. I feel the tips of my, tip of my nose. I feel it all, right? Yeah, and fully embodied. Um, I love where this conversation led, and uh, I'm interested in merging this with the Genius Loci and what came up as you were speaking. Um, oh my God, I'm getting chills as I think about this. The land is a body, right? The land is like us. We are like the land, right? The land has meridians. I love how you talked about earth organs. That's coming up a lot for me too, Nikki. I'm feeling a lot like that the organs of the property want to communicate, and that they all, like different zones of the property or region have different roles to play in terms of the organs. I don't know if that's exactly what you meant, but that's what came up for me. And I think it's so important, when you look at conscious city building and urban design. That's also one of my passions, actually. I love cities. I love cities. I love towns. And when you do look at the ones that were more consciously built, there's always anchoring, grounding elements, whether they are the church steeple, right? Like the power, the vertical power, but that's like a real, like, acupuncture grounding element, right? Architecturally. There's maybe like in Turkey, I think of a lot of the old plane tree. It's called the çınar ağacı, which is located at the center of the village. It's always very, like, for the ones that I go through, the cities, towns that I visit, they're always very old, and they've always been allowed to grow that big. And often the tea cafe, but the central gathering space is often around that big tree, and it's such a grounding element for both for the Genius Loci, which is a living being, and the people who live
It will
there.
probably function as an axis mundi and an omphalos. But maybe that's something
Yeah,
for our next
right? Like,
conversation.
ooh, okay. I have to say, when you say Axis Mundi, I don't have so much flowing through when you say that, but I'm sure I'm somehow connected to that. So anyway, let's save that. I love that. Yeah, like the main water fountain in some of the Roman courtyards in Rome, or there's so much. There's so much, and I invite those who are listening, whether they're live or listening to the recording, to think to observe their town, their city, their neighborhood, could even be a suburb, wherever that is. What is the grounding element? Is there a place that people gather around? And maybe you don't even know why. Like, there was this one place in Istanbul where everybody would just like, okay, 12 a.m., we're meeting at the corner of this and this, toast shop. And it's like, why is it always that corner, right?
Yeah. It could also be because people are always there, because people are also part of spirit
Yeah,
place.
I know. And then they just...
And if you pay attention to a certain place, you can, make little games. Maybe you have a front yard, and pay attention to a certain area in your front yard and see what people do that are walking by. It will make a difference. It's a fun game to play and see how that works out. It is what statues are doing as well. They attract attention, and every time attention is there, it gets affirmed that its existence. But you don't always have to have something physical there to create that attention. Try it out, especially in your front yard, because people are walking by, and you have a chance to watch the people that are walking by. See how they respond.
I love it. Amazing, Nikki. What a great conversation.
Yeah. So, are there any questions left? Because I think we are about to wrap up.
Yep.
So get your chance now. Otherwise, we're gonna see you.
Oh, thanks, Aisha. I feel so much love for your efforts in connecting our higher self for a more loving and caring future. Thank you, Aisha.
Oh, thank you. That's so kind.
Great. Yeah, try the grounding exercise. I don't know what your name is. Thank you. I don't know. Maybe you were in South Africa. Oh, no, he's in New York City. Oh, okay. Oh, yes, I'm in New York City. I hated it there.
People are tuning in from around the globe. That's so cool.
I love it. It's so cool.
Okay, lovely people. In I think 2 weeks or maybe 3, we are doing another live. It's hosted on Aisha's channel then. And if you have some input for a conversation or a topic, just send us a DM, and we'll have a look at it. And I hope to see you all next time then.
Okay. Nikki, thanks for hosting. Bye from Izmir.
Bye-bye.
Bye from Izmir. See you.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone.